Something that they talk about a lot in art school, and I got this in my painting degree. I hear it at SCAD all the time. There's no original idea.
Oh my gosh, you're the second person to say that. Yeah.
Like, there's just not. It's been done before.
I'm your host, Sarah Baus, and welcome to Attainable Podcast. Hi guys, welcome to the Attainable Podcast. I hope you're doing well. This episode is the last episode of our creative series. I'm probably going to bring this back, honestly, because this has been so good. Today's interview was so good, but we're going to be moving into some wedding content and some other episodes that we're planning that I'm super excited about. The wedding is September 24th, and don't worry, we plan on having episodes as long as everything works out, all through my time at the wedding, on the honeymoon, all those type of things. And so we will still have Attainable Podcast going up. Today, I'm talking with Catt Weglicki. They are an animator and multimedia artist, and this conversation was so interesting. They started out studying in marine biology, and moved into art, and they went through painting. They've gone through animation and storyboard. Like, it's extremely interesting conversation. I know you're going to love it. I hope you guys have enjoyed this creativity series. The guests have been amazing. And if you have anybody that you want me to interview and on to speak more about this, please submit them. Go ahead and DM us on Instagram. And we would love to hear it. But anyway, you're going to love this episode. Love this episode. So anyways, here's Catt. Thank you so much for coming on.
Hi. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited. I was telling you a little bit before, I've been just stalking your Instagram for the past couple of days, and I'm so excited to get a look into your brain. But for everybody listening, can you just give a very brief description of what you do and what your art style is?
Yeah, so I am a storyboard artist, a painter, animator. Basically, I just wear a bunch of different hats as far as art goes. So it's always kind of changing. Nothing really stays constant.
Yeah. And I want to. I guess I think it's kind of an odd question to say, like, why, but how do you have so many different mediums?
I don't really know. It's always just kind of like been a thing that I did. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't even originally trying to be an artist. That was not my original plan.
Okay.
I mean, Natalie could tell you, I went to College of Charleston for marine biology.
Stop. Okay, well, my next question was the evolution of like your art style and getting into art.
Yeah.
So let's jump into that. Where did that transition happen?
So I was always an artistic person, but I guess in high school, I felt kind of like steered away from that as far as path-wise goes.
Why?
So I went to a college preparatory high school, like fancy, like all girls Catholic high school. So me being good at science was more important to them.
Oh, I've spoken a lot about paths and these trajectories that people are put on in the current education system, and I could go on and on. So
it was even though I was decent, like I was pretty good at art too. It's good at both, but they're like
this one's gonna be what you're doing. Thanks.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, sure, yeah. And then I got into it and I just didn't like it. So I was like, you know what? I'll go back to the one thing I always have, which is art. Ended up leaving College of Charleston because I'm not going to go into debt if I can get an art degree elsewhere. Got a painting degree. Graduated in 2020 with that. First class, like I was like spring 2020. So I graduated right when COVID hit.
Yeah.
That was a lot.
Yeah.
And then had like this moment of I don't know what to do because the art market basically crashed.
Yeah.
Like people weren't selling paintings. And I was like, I don't know what to do with my life now because nothing's happening. So I kind of just went back to character design and more animation related stuff, and now I'm at SCAD in Savannah.
Yeah, what do you so you got like a bachelor's in painting, and then what are you
Mhm.
studying at SCAD?
I'm getting another bachelor's because I am focusing in storyboarding and like concept design.
Yeah.
So it's like a facet of the animation major, but their master's in animation is like all 3D, which is not my thing at all. So I'm just getting another BFA, which is fun.
Yeah, and SCAD is literally so cool. Like
It's really, really cool.
I was like, is it as cool as
It
it
is.
seems like it is?
It's really cool. I really love it here.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, so yeah, so you've gone from painting to like animation. And one of my questions was that what is the role of storytelling in your art? Because looking at
Yeah.
your art, like it's pretty much all characters or some sort of storyline, which is a little bit different from the other creatives that I've talked to. And they have been, it'll be a prompt, not necessarily of a full storyline as much as yours communicates. So
Nice.
what kind of role does that have? Did you see a transition from how like pulling how you used to paint into how you go into animation?
Definitely. Um, so when I was getting my painting degree, that was kind of the big critique that I got is I was always trying to tell more. I was always trying to put a story behind stuff. To a point where it was like too much. And I was always told kind of like reel it back, like you don't have to put that much into it. But I was always trying to like tell really intricate stories, which is why I think as a whole, like the whole painting, like fine arts gallery kind of stuff didn't mesh with me. And I didn't notice it at the time. uh yeah, I think I've always loved storytelling in general. And it just kind of took me a long and winding path
Yeah.
to figure out how to kind of incorporate that into my work. And now that's basically like my job
Yeah. Do
is
you
storytelling.
Yeah. Do you come up with these stories, or how does like the inspiration process work in terms of like conceptualizing something that you're wanting to create?
Some of them I do come up with. So I have chronic nightmares.
Oh
But
my
I'm
gosh, I
also
was looking at some of your
yeah,
work and one of them said like this is from a nightmare I had. I was like, "Oh my gosh."
yeah, no, it's a huge inspiration. I have always had super vivid, insane dreams and nightmares. And I'm really interested in horror art, specifically like horror movies and
Mhm.
making an animated horror film. Um, so that kind of I just keep like the notes app on my phone is just concept after concept after concept. Like if I have something weird happen in a dream, I will just write it down
Yeah.
and go back to it later eventually. Um, but yeah, that a lot of stuff I do pull from that. I read a lot, so sometimes I'll like bookmark stuff while I'm reading.
Yeah.
And
I
then go
love
back
reading.
and like try and bring that to life.
Mhm.
Um, I also play a lot of D&D.
That would be probably a huge inspiration. Yeah.
Huge
Yeah.
inspiration because it's basically just all of us playing off of each other, just improvising stuff. So you really don't know what is going to happen ever.
Yeah.
But I've gotten some really fun stuff from there.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. Now this is totally a selfish question. I'm such a book nerd.
Yes.
And I've gotten into fiction in the last probably year.
Mhm.
No, I think it's been like year and a half, something like that. Anyway, and so I'm thinking, okay, like you taking inspiration from these books. Do you ever like, like you love a book, so you try and continue the story
Ooh, that's a really good question. I have never tried to continue the story, I don't think.
or visualize what you read?
Um, but I definitely visualize it. Like in my head, I'm like, what would this look like if it was a movie? Like, how would I?
I'm like jealous. I feel like you've got like a magic wand or something, and it's like, oh, you know how to put all the fantasies from your mind onto a physical page. Like that's like that's fantastic. I'm so happy for you. I just struggle and, just wiggle around, not knowing where to put my emotions or feelings. So I'm really glad that you figured that out for yourself.
It's really fun.
Okay. Well, I had another question. So, since your art is storytelling, I think this will be interesting. So, a concept that I have found fascinating is the idea of like prompts for artists. And is a prompt a crutch, or is it a good foundational point? Because I've grown up in science and STEM, and so
Yeah.
I haven't really been exposed until now, hence why I'm doing this series, to what the creative process looks like. I assumed that people popped out the womb and they're like with a pencil in their hand or something, like they just know. And a lot of people they'll say, like, I'm like, how did you learn to do art? They're like, I don't know, I just do. And I'm like, that's really freaking nice for you. Like, I love that. Like, that's helpful for me, thanks. And then there's others who are like, no, there is a process and you do like study it and you get better and all that kind of stuff. But I am like, okay, I'm thinking artists just look at a blank wall and come up with brilliance, and then, whatever medium they're working in, they creative vomit, and then it's like,
Yeah.
great. They're like, that's awesome. Do you think that, but then I've also looked at, especially when in like art school and things like that, where of course there is a prompt and there is like some sort of standing ground, it's a sandbox for you to play in. Do you think that that's a crutch, or something that you kind of lean on but you need to come off of, or is that kind of the foundational point for all art?
I think it's more of a foundational point. Something that they talk about a lot in art school, and I got this in my painting degree. I hear it at SCAD all the time. There's no original idea.
Oh my gosh,
There's
you're the
just
second person
not.
to say that. Yeah.
Like, there's just not. It's been done before. In fact, like one of my storytelling classes, he literally gave us Aesop's fables to choose from. So every single person in the class was picking from 3 different fables, and then from there we would build a short film.
Mhm.
And everyone's was completely different.
Yeah.
Even though we had the same prompts, like even people like I chose The Boy Who Cried Wolf. Every other person that chose that, completely different. Like characters, setting, like everything was totally different. So I think prompts are kind of just like a little stepping stone to getting to the end product. I also watched a whole lot of like art YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love YouTube.
I love YouTube. Although
It's
now
so good.
TikTok's completely taken like its place, but I was a YouTube kid. I'm like, I was
Yeah.
raised by YouTube.
Yeah, there's a lot of like one channel I watch is called Drawfee. And they do their whole show, the whole premise is 4 artists will get like the same kind of prompt, or they give each other prompts, and they just make something absolutely insane from it.
Yeah.
So I just think it's a fun way to kind of like start, because sometimes you don't finish with the prompt. Sometimes it may go somewhere completely different.
Yeah. But that's okay.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just kind of gives you a direction. Do you, and this is interesting question for you. So the question I've been asking is, when do you know that a piece is finished? Which, for you, there's a story close.
Yeah.
Versus an abstract artist, or my
Mhm.
last artist, she did like very graphic portraits, and but they were like from her head.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, when do you know that a piece is finished and you can step away?
Ooh, I think it does really depend on the piece. Like stuff like these back here, super like cut and dry. Um, Photographs, once I edit it, that's kind of it.
Mhm.
Um, but as far as like storytelling goes, God, there's sometimes there's no end depending what the story is. If it's like my own kind of character, my own setting, like I may finish one story, but in my head it doesn't really stop. Like it just can keep going. Um, I do make a lot of checklists though.
Really?
I
How do
do.
you use your
I
checklists?
so I'll do like uh roughing it out. So going in, blocking everything out, I try and get like if I'm storyboarding something, I'll try and get all of my panels completely roughed out, just get the idea of what I need on there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I go in and I refine that line wise. I'll add if they need color, if they need shading, anything like that. So I kind of break it down into steps so that by the end I'm like, yeah, this is where it needs to be wrapped up. Um, but especially with storyboards, once you send them off, if like working on a film or something, sometimes you got to edit it. So
Yeah. Do you use words in your art process when you're coming up with a storyboard?
yes,
This is something that I
definitely.
found super interesting. The last artist that we had on, and then an artist I talked to before that. And of course, for me, as somebody who again thinks that people just shit brilliance, I like to hear that somebody's like, no, like I'll journal things and almost write out a concept before. I'm like, the process of a neuron zapping and coming up with something and then putting it into a physical form. I'm like, I want to know exactly how that happens. And so hearing that people and artists use words, like so many artists I've talked to, it goes from like head to words, then to their medium, which I
Yeah.
find insane. And it's interesting that that's a commonality.
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting. I remember it from a professor I had at University of Memphis, Lisa Williamson, who's a fantastic artist, and she does right now a lot of abstract work. But um, I, whenever you're stuck and you don't kind of know how to get from your head to paper or canvas, she was the one that told me write, just write it down. So that kind of got to I just word vomit into a sketchbook. Also mood boards. Pinterest
How do you
is
how do you use your mood boards? I want to hear it. I find them
so
to be both amazing and overwhelming.
yeah, there's a lot. So for like the short film that I boarded based on The Boy Who Cried Wolf, I did The Girl Who Cried Ghost. So I went on Pinterest and I was like, let me get like anything related to like ghosts, a lot of Stranger Things photos because my main characters were all kids. So like anything that kind of fit that Scooby-Doo kind of vibe,
Mm-hmm.
anything, whether it was like just a creepy artistic photo or picture of a broken down house, like anything that fit the vibe, throw it in there. Just anything.
Yeah.
Just to get the feeling. Same with playlists. I also use a lot of playlists to kind of get me into the
Interesting. I
headspace.
love that. This reminds me of like when Natalie and I are like planning a photo shoot. She'll have
Yeah.
me do a mood board and but she's much more literal, like in the way
Yeah.
that she thinks of it. I'm very much like sploosh, here's a bunch of photos. She's like, okay, well, what do you like about this photo? I'm like, I don't know. It felt warm and fuzzy to me. Like, I'm just like, like vomit all these images over. And she's like, okay,
Yeah.
well, we need to organize this. And I'm like, oh, I don't know how. Couldn't tell you how. Not a clue how. Um, but that's interesting. So you've got just all these images, anything that works, you put it in.
Yep.
That just kind of helps you visualize.
Yeah. And whether it's like a still from a movie where I'm like, I like the way that that's framed, throw it in there. Um, or like color palettes. If something just has a nice color palette, it can go in there. Um, yeah, just fits the
Yeah.
whole vibe that I'm thinking of.
Do you think there's like a line that you cross between, oh, I'm finding inspiration and I'm getting more creative, or oh, I'm like dulling my creativity and kind of losing it by looking at other people's stuff too much?
Sometimes I would definitely think so. Like I'll get into a hole where I'm just like scrolling through Twitter, which has a bunch of animators on it, and just looking at everybody's work,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're sitting there and you're like, I'll never be like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but when I'm working, I think I'm definitely more focused. I try and like I literally throw my phone into another room, like don't look at it.
Yeah.
I try and separate like looking at art for fun and then looking at like art for inspiration
Mm-hmm.
so that it doesn't influence me as much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if I am looking at art for inspiration, I try and find stuff that's in a different medium that's like not
Oh, that's a good
what
point.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the playlists. That's
Yep.
fascinating. Yeah.
Music.
A playlist can really like help you catch a vibe. I
Love it.
I learned that I'm like an oddball for Spotify. Like I keep talking to people and they're like, "Oh yeah, I have a playlist for this, I have a playlist for this." And I'll even like stalk my friends' Spotify accounts and I see like they really have these curated playlists. I've been working from my liked songs thing for years. Like literally I think thinking about it, I'm like, "Oh my God, this is the most manic, like weirdest way to do this." You know, other people are like, yes, I feel this way. I go to this place. I'm like, no, no, no. I have this giant thing of songs I've been curating for the last probably 7 years.
Oh my
And
God.
the farther back you get, the worse it is. But so I just kind of start at the top, or if I'm feeling spicy, I just press shuffle and just hit like skip until I find one that's good and hope the algorithm figures it out. Like
Oh
it's
my
a terrible system, and but
That's
that's like what
chaotic.
I got. I'm working on my playlist now. Like we are trying to build them so that I can actually say, okay, this is how I'm feeling. This is where I go. So it's much more organized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine is I feel like my playlists are very all over the place. Like on one hand, I do monthly playlists where I just like dump anything that I'm listening to that month goes there.
I
And then
love
I have
that.
more like specific moods.
Yeah. Oh, the
Like,
names of playlists are my
oh,
favorite.
it's the best.
Favorite. Yeah. I was speaking with my cousin and he's got some really interesting ones. I really like a playlist he has called Second Wind and it's for the
Ooh.
gym. It's very
Oh,
good.
that's so
It's when you
nice.
need it. Yeah, yeah. And then he
Yeah.
has one, it's one of my favorite titles. It's Gaslighting an Indie Girl, which I found to be one of the funniest things I've ever seen in
Oh
my
my
life.
God.
Like Spotify playlist names are a different level. I'm like, this
It's
is genius
incredible.
because it is the most, usually the most accurate portrayal of a vibe.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
I couldn't have said it better.
Like they know.
They know, like, I know exactly what you're talking about. I know the moment that
Exactly. Yep.
you, like, I would listen
Yep.
to this, like, 100%.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay, switching gears a little bit.
Yeah.
Is there, and getting very philosophical, is there a like art theory or belief, or maybe not even art, but something that you stand by and kind of use as a foundation or that kind of is portrayed through your art?
Ooh. Um, hmm. My
That's
teachers
a
would
really
be so mad at me right now for not knowing anything.
no, no, no. You know, that was I as soon as I wrote that, I was like, "Oh, Sarah, make sure you send that to her beforehand because that's a really hefty question." And then I didn't. So I apologize for that. So take
It's
your time.
all
Totally take
good.
your time.
I have so many books of like theory and stuff like that. Like love art history, love
Yeah.
theory. Um, hmm.
Or
I
even
think
a motto or something that you
yeah,
remind yourself.
I would think my thing is definitely like not sticking to art. Like you mentioned the idea of like the sandbox to play
Mm-hmm.
in. Um, Something that I've just kind of learned over the years is get out of the sandbox. go go elsewhere. So like even though I started in science and I'm not working in science anymore, I still incorporate that into my work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it has a huge influence on like my character design because I look at a lot of different like animals and bugs and just like random things that I pull from. So I try and I'd say like I cast a wide net as far as inspiration goes. And I try to not place limits as far as art goes. So whether it's like using a different kind of material, like something that's not typically an art material, or making art outside. Like my sketchbook, I have like flowers that I find when I'm walking and like random stuff that I just kind of throw in there that I like. Uh, but it's definitely like sometimes you gotta get outside the sandbox or just go outside in general.
Yeah. Yeah. Just
Yeah,
breathe
like
air, breathe fresh air.
yeah,
Remember what the
it's like
outdoors are like.
go touch some grass.
Go touch some grass. That's my favorite. I love that so much.
Yeah. But like I love art and biology and like putting them together.
That's interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I love that you're kind of taking all parts of you and infusing it into it and making it
Yeah.
meaningful. I started in chem and
Whew.
now I work in TikTok. So like very
Yeah.
science geeks here.
Yep.
So all about it. With as you developed your art style and especially I would assume that would come, I mean, for me it did, like a huge identity crisis, leaving science and being told like this is what you're supposed to do and like this is how you're going to be successful. And then not only changing directions into something creative, which I think is harder, but then also, being challenged in that way of now you have to find your own style and figure out who you are as an artist. And all of that is such a personal experience. What was your
Yeah.
biggest challenge along that road?
Ooh, definitely figuring out my voice. I would say for the first 2.5 years of writing degree, I had no idea what I was doing. No clue. Everybody else seemed to find, their theme, the concepts way easier, and I just could not do it. Everything that I made was so different from the first thing that I made or the next thing that I would make. And I just couldn't figure out how people were doing that. um, it took, yeah, I would say the second semester of my junior year. I was in a sculpture class, which I loved. Um, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, I still love documentaries and nature. Like that's still a huge part of my life. Why don't I pull from that? So I started making some sculpture work, which is very different from my paintings, I would say. I think I have an older video of like the first round of it on my website. It was like I made a video and projected it through a fishbowl of my own like clear plastic trash. And the video was all about like plastic and pollution and stuff like that. So it was really a hard-hitting video. Some people did not like it. It was intense. But that kind of jump started everything. And then in fall of 2019, because of that Professor Lisa, who is amazing, I love her so much. She told me to go on a residency, which is like unheard of for undergrad artists. Like that is not a thing you do as an undergrad. So I applied to a residency that she had been on called the Art Bio residency in Puerto Rico with the Art Bio collaboration. And I got in. So like I worked my ass off that summer, working 2 jobs, like 7 days a week, and then got quit both of them and flew to Puerto Rico.
Oh my
And
gosh.
like spent like a week camping and hiking and like drawing a bunch of stuff, meeting all of these really fantastic other artists. And then we went to Panama together, and went to another conference there called Dynacon, which was very like different in that it was a bunch of like tech scientists and artists just in the middle of the rainforest in this itty bitty little town, just doing whatever. And that just like kickstarted everything as far as like my process goes.
Really?
Yeah, it was insane.
How did that kickstart? Just seeing all these people in the same room, or, just, I mean, traveling in general is a huge like redefining practice. So is it just getting out of your comfort zone? What about that really kind of made something click?
Yeah, it was definitely getting out of my comfort zone. While I wouldn't say I am an outdoorsy person, I was not ready
Yeah.
for what I saw. And I felt like Steve Irwin because there was so much wildlife. And we were just hiking around. But I think it was realizing that I don't have to pick one or the other. Like I can do whatever it is and it's fine. And sometimes it's just like, oh, I think this will be fun. I just kind of want to see what happens if I make this. And just like bouncing off of other people and like that sense of community, even if they weren't all artists. It was really fun. I still talk to these people today, like years later. And even though I'm in something completely different, that trip like plays a huge part on my process artistically. Oh, my cat.
Hello.
Hi, buddy. Do you need something? Okay. Come here. This is Hamlet.
Oh, so cute. Oh my gosh.
He's a large boy. He knows when my webcam is on. I swear.
He's
he
like,
knows.
Time for me. It's time
He's
for
like,
my
I
debut.
have to do something about
I have
this.
to do something
every time. Okay.
Well, kind of just round it out. Would you mind giving us your definition of creativity?
Oh my God, Hamlet, please. Hamlet, please. He I trying to make a definition out of it. I feel like it's just kind of expressing, I don't know, your soul. That feels like a very deep way to put it.
Yeah.
But I mean, for me, it really is just like taking stuff. Please, Hamlet. Like taking the silly things that I see in my head and just bringing it to life in whatever way that I can.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's a very freeing experience. Like knowing that I can make whatever I want. Like that's, I mean, creativity to me is just knowing like there's no rules.
Yeah.
There's no rules. Just make something.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. This has been extremely insightful and just so cool hearing about your journey, and especially your personal journey, and how that really kind of how that portrays itself in your art. So how can we put you on blast? If anybody wants to find you, see your work, support you, any of those things, where can they find you to do that?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram and Twitter on at Catt Scratch, CATT_scratch, and then Catt Scratch Art on Twitter. Everywhere else is just Spooky Cat if you want to look at my personal stuff. But my website, which is a work in progress, is cattweglicki.com.
Awesome. We'll have all
that has
the bio too.
Everything. But I've discovered that fine art websites are different than animation websites. They look very different, and I was not prepared for that. Right, Hamlet?
Work in progress.
Yeah, it's a work in progress.
Work in progress.
For sure.
Thank you so much for being on, guys. I know.
Thank you so much.
I know that you enjoyed this episode. This is actually the last episode for right now of our creative series. Might be bringing it back up, but if you enjoyed it, please share post on your Instagram stories, all that kind of stuff. Tag us, tag Catt, so that we can support each other and we can repost you and all those type of things. If you loved it, please rate us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the things. And as usual, I hope you guys have a fabulous week, and I'll see you guys next time.